Hey, are you getting caught up in the latest health trends and feeling overwhelmed as to what diet is best? We get it, and that's why, as leaders of wellness in our community, Joanne's Place Health Foods has created the Wellness on Purpose podcast. On this podcast, you can expect community and brand experts to share impactful, educational, and realistic information to help you progress on your journey to live wellness on purpose now and for future generations. My name is Marissa Alkaline. I'm a holistic nutritionist in partnership with Joanne's Place and your host for this podcast. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Wellness on Purpose podcast. On today's episode, we are welcoming back one of my favorite guests, Cyrus from Pure Lab Vitamins. Cyrus joined us in the past to share about the rising concerns of cardiovascular disease in women, as well as seasonal affective disorder. In case you missed those episodes, I will leave the links in the description below for you to check out. But for today's episode, we've asked Cyrus to join us again and share his knowledge on proper pH levels of the body. Before we dive into today's topic, join me in welcoming Cyrus back onto the podcast. Good morning, Cyrus. Welcome back to the Wellness on Purpose podcast. How are you doing today?
Great, thank you. We've been very busy over the last 2 years, like everyone. People are certainly getting a lot more conscious about the need to support their bodies. And there's so much evidence now on how key nutrients can directly influence the outcome of a viral infection. Well, yeah, and I mean, all the research we're seeing these days is also valid for any kind of infection, whether it's viral, bacterial, or even fungal, but also for inflammation and for many other chronic conditions.
Yes, we have definitely seen individuals start to prioritize their wellness over the last few years, which is fantastic. So before we jump into today's topic, can you share with our listeners a brief introduction about who you are, what you do, and your journey to creating Pure Lab Vitamins?
Well, I started Pure Lab Vitamins because I saw the need and the results of targeted nutritional support in many common chronic conditions while I was working as a compounding pharmacist with Ottawa's oldest family-owned Desjardins pharmacy in the Byward market. And for many, many years, I have considered myself an anti-pharmacist, even though I work in the dispensary, or used to work in the dispensary, but I was trying to get people off drugs and onto diet and lifestyle changes, and then used key nutrients to help in this process of transition.
That's fantastic. So we know that Pure Lab Vitamins is one of the top supplement companies in Canada, but can you share a little bit more about the brand with our listeners?
Well, again, I started making our magnesium glycinate and our AlkaPure pH actually in the compounding lab of the pharmacy in downtown Ottawa, and could not keep it on the shelf. It just flew off, and I wasn't able, with even 2-3 technicians, to keep just the requirements for this one single store. So I one day brainstormed with a friend of mine, and we kind of decided to take this national and start a brand and incorporated, got the NPN listings, and started with 2 products at the time. That was back in 2010. And today we are still operating out of Ottawa. I no longer practice as a pharmacist. We have 32 products in the Canadian market, venturing into the US and Europe. It's been a whirlwind of experiences and a success but also growth. It's quite an amazing learning curve for me. And I always focus on like key nutrients that I formulate in therapeutic dosages, and I provide a lot of information through my webinars and podcasts on how to use nutrients like vitamins and minerals for specific conditions to achieve a true therapeutic turnaround. And I think this kind of approach shows success. We are growing above industry standards year over year, and it's quite a rush to kind of see this company thrive like this. And I guess we're doing something right.
Yes, you sure are. So, today I asked you to join us on the podcast to talk about pH levels and alkalinity within the body. Typically, when people hear the term pH levels, they always assume like chemistry class, or they think about water, like drinking water, pools, and hot tubs, which is totally accurate. But there is a lot to be talked about in regards to the pH balance in the body. So, can you start by briefly talking about what pH balance means and why it is so important for our health?
I mean, we as humans, and practically any human being or any being on this planet, they're practically a biochemical power plant. People that have experience with monitoring pH in the hot tub or pool will have definitely an advantage here, because they kind of know how small changes of salts they add to their water in the tub or pool can have an impact on the pH balance. And practically the same applies to our bodies as well. Within our biochemistry, every day, billions of reactions are happening, and they're there to kind of move around, like help our muscles work, our skeleton. They're there to help us digest and provide resources into our biochemistry. These reactions help us make energy, help us use the energy, help us to grow, help us to fight pathogens, but also detox, and like the list goes on and on and on, all on a biochemical level. And all these biochemical reactions and all the enzymes that drive these reactions have pH optimums. And usually their optimums are in the range around the neutral point of pH 7. You know? But, and that's a big but in today's world, our diet and our lifestyles, and especially stress, is constantly shifting our systemic pH into more acidic ranges. And our bodies do have mechanisms in place to counteract this and maintain balance. But if diet and a sedentary lifestyle is combined with chronic stress day after day after day after day, then these balancing mechanisms in our system will at some point reach their limits, and we start to become more and more acidic.
Now, do we have one pH level for the entire body, or do different areas of the body have different pH levels?
That's a very good question. Yes, there are various pH ranges in our body, and our systemic pH is also not static. It actually follows a circadian rhythm depending on what we eat and drink, and how much we move, and how much we breathe, and how much stress we are exposed to. The goal is to actually shift the average body pH back up towards more alkaline ranges.
So, overall, for our bodies, what is an ideal pH level?
The average North American middle-aged individual usually has an average pH of around 5.5, and that is quite acidic. Dietary changes, daily exercise, breathing exercises, and potentially proper supplements can help bring this average pH back up to around pH of 7.
Now, how does one test what their pH levels are?
Well, you can get so-called physiological pH paper or pH test strips in most health food stores or pharmacies. The pH range of these papers or strips should be between 5 to 8 or between 4 to 9. pH usually goes from 1 to 14, but for our bodies, only this physiological range is of interest. So you can actually get much more accurate results with a pH strip that is kind of focusing on this range. And you can test either in urine or saliva. I prefer saliva because it, from my point of view, reflects the situation in the tissues much closer compared to urine. But both methods work as long as you know that your urine is generally more acidic by nature, because the kidneys are constantly trying to excrete organic acids from the body into urine. So the pH target that you're looking for in saliva is between 7 to 7.4, and the pH target in urine would be between 6.6 to 7. So you see that the goal you're trying to see in urine is actually a touch more acidic than it is in saliva. No? But keep in mind, one test by itself is really pretty much useless, because it's just one little snapshot of your circadian pH range. In the beginning, when you start learning about your body, you have to test much more frequently. For example, 4 times daily for 4 days, and then calculate your pH average. That average is what you're trying to shift up into more alkaline ranges. One test could completely give you misleading results, thinking you're totally fine, but 2 hours later, your pH drops back into highly acidic ranges. So collecting about 16 to 20 test results, adding up each number value and divide by the number of tests, that's your average pH, and that's the one you want to determine and then modify.
Now, can you just recap what that pH scale looks like and where you would fall on each end of it if you were acidic versus being alkaline?
pH range in full chemistry goes from practically 0 to 14. Higher number values show more alkalinity, lower number values show more acidity. So anything below 7 is more acidic, and everything above 7 is more alkaline. Also, you have to know that the pH kind of mathematically represents a logarithmic function. That means a change from 7 to 6 actually means that your body is 10 times more acidic just by shifting just by one pH value. And then again, if you're shifting from 5.5 to 6.5 with all the work that you put in and diet and lifestyle changes, you're reducing your acidity levels tenfold. That's quite an interesting little tidbit here.
So, when you're trying to figure out what your pH level is, or the average of your pH level, when are the best times for people to test for this?
Well, I always say that it's the best is to test away from food and drink. You can imagine if you just swish coffee through your mouth and then draw a saliva sample right after, you're actually measuring to a good portion the pH level of coffee, which is quite acidic. So you're supposed to test like away from food and drink. Water is always okay because it's generally neutral, or if at all, just slightly acidic or very slightly alkaline. So the best times to test are in the morning before you brush your teeth, because toothpaste would also, again, alter your reading in saliva. Mid-morning, I would say bang between breakfast and lunch, mid-afternoon between lunch and dinner, and then again also at bedtime. So that would give you 4 tests per day. Do that for 4 to 5 days, and then calculate your average. That's the pH result you should be looking for.
Okay, so we've taken our 4 tests for multiple days and we have an average. So, what do those results mean in terms of if you're acidic or if you're more alkaline?
Well, in reality, nobody is naturally alkaline, not in today's world. If someone tests at a pH range of 7.5 or higher, which is alkaline, what you most often measure here is not your baseline systemic pH, but much rather your body's overshooting response to very acidic states. It shows that your body is already dumping and sacrificing valuable alkaline minerals from your body's resources like muscle and bones. And the body does that to help an exhausted pH balancing system and to actually help counteract hyperacidity. You have to know that if the body would allow the blood to get too acidic, we would very quickly die of a condition called acidosis. So the body does whatever it needs to do to maintain blood pH within its fairly narrow range, sacrificing the supplies of other tissues to do that. So this all sounds quite gruesome, I know, but personally, I have not seen very many people that were naturally at an ideal pH range. Stress is just omnipresent, and it's one of the strongest acidifiers in our lives.
Stress is so impactful for our health. And I just want to take a second to really stress that We cannot really always avoid stressors, but it's so critical to have a stress management routine or regimen, daily ritual, weekly ritual in play, because stress is coming at us at every single angle and it's affecting so many different parts of the body. So, in terms of what people can start to do right now, how would somebody become more alkaline?
Well, you can imagine if the one of the biggest causes of acidity is stress, then stress management is quite powerful, and that sounds as a term so easy, but it's obviously not. But I mean, I always preach that we really should go through life and figure out what are my personal stressors, and actually recognize and acknowledge them, because then you have a choice or a chance to alter, either remove these stressors from your life or alter your attitude towards them. Diet is the next most important factor in helping your body balance acidity. And there it's really sad to say that all the good things in life make us acidic, and all the bland things and green stuff is alkalining. But I have a bit of an idea there as well, and I'll talk about that in a second. Daily exercise is hugely important here. Stress happens daily, so exercise and improved circulation, increased breathing frequency have to happen daily as well. So, and if these three lifestyle factors have led to a state of hyperacidity, then we have to practically make changes there, and change the causing factors. And people are always concerned, like when they hear, "Oh, I can no longer eat this or drink that," But I believe I would never raise my finger and say you have to stop eating carbs, you have to stop drinking alcohol, you have to stop coffee and tea, and and the list goes on and on. This way, you really repel people very quickly, and you're kind of reducing compliance. But if you start learning how you can shift your habits, this becomes potentially doable. It maybe allows you to stay compliant. For example, if a person used to consume 5 cups of coffee every day, which is very acidic, and you then starting to learn about pH balance and alkaline effects of alkalinity on our bodies, then this person might be able to change to just 2 cups a day, and truly and fully enjoy those 2 cups in the morning. And if you manage to kind of live like that, then you actually have effectively reduced your coffee consumption by 60%. And that's significant. But you're still enjoying your morning coffee and get the kick from that to get started. You'll most likely be able to maintain this long term, and you're improving, or you're starting a shift. And if you now, with this experience, do that also with carbs and alcohol and red meats and so forth, you can still have an enjoyable diet, but you are starting to shift your balance towards a more alkaline lifestyle. And very quickly will you also experience the benefits from that, because all these little aches and pains, or even bigger aches and pains we experience with age, are most certainly fueled by systemic hyperacidity. I've seen this time and time again, that people that were scheduled to go into knee surgery or shoulder replacement and all kinds of other like drastic steps, once they started to kind of pay attention to these lifestyle factors and maybe used in the acute stages alkalining supplements and other key nutrients at the same time, over the course of 2, 3, 4 months, all of a sudden they were able to cancel their scheduled surgery, because overall, with a more alkaline lifestyle, your body's tendency to be inflamed and to maintain and fuel inflammation goes down.
Wow, that's incredible. And also, you have created a product over at Pure Lab Vitamins that is really supportive for bringing more alkalinity to the body. Did you want to share with our listeners a little bit more about that?
Well, that is AlkaPure, AlkaPure pH. It's a formulation that I actually worked on out of personal need. I was at the time still a fairly young pharmacist. I had two beautiful little children, and with that, not sufficient sleep. I was running the family, running my compounding lab, and went through like fairly stressful times, and developed plantar fasciitis. And as a pharmacist, I had access to all the anti-inflammatories that the shelf could provide to me. And I tried whatever I could in trying to reduce inflammation and get rid of this, but nothing really fully worked. And then one day I stumbled across an alkaline supplement and had listened to a webinar, and I said, "Oh, I might as well give this a try." And within 3 weeks, I practically kind of cleansed my peripheral tissues, and inflammation was gone. So then I really got interested and started to study pH balance, alkaline therapy, and everything around it. And from that came this formulation of AlkaPure pH, which is calcium free, which I think is a hugely important feature, to not pump high levels of calcium into an acidic body at the time, because you would force calcifications all over the body, and that can have quite detrimental effects long term as well. And the other big feature that AlkaPure has, which I think is even more important, because there are many products out there that use regular sodium bicarbonate by itself, which is baking soda. And in the health food store, people might have heard this question before, that customers asked, like, well, why would I buy this product here if I can just go to the bulk barn and buy some kilo of sodium bicarbonate? But in doing so, you would elevate your body's tissue levels of sodium quite drastically, and with that, shift your body's pipe pressure into the upper ranges while your cells are still fairly dehydrated. So AlkaPure is a product that is sodium potassium balanced, and with that, you're not elevating the pipe pressure, blood pressure, and you actually help hydrate the cells, which helps the cells flush out their waste. So it actually does that very effectively and efficiently.
That sounds like an amazing product. And as a holistic nutritionist, my focus is usually always food first, because I believe we get so much nourishment from the food that we consume, and we can't live without food. So it's really important to prioritize proper and balanced nutrition. And I'm also a firm believer in living an active lifestyle. There are so many other health concerns beyond just talking about alkalinity that's important for. But I do really believe that supplementation has an important role in people's wellness journeys, because it can allow people to see results a little bit quicker. And sometimes we're not able to make all of the changes at once. So it can just kind of speed the process up and just allow the body to start to make a shift a little bit quicker. But with that being said, how quickly can one see their pH levels change? Is it a day to day, or would you say month to month, or even longer?
That's a very good question and often asked. I always say that if your body was exposed to the standard American diet, also known as SAD, SAD, and an average North American lifestyle, and even just average stress levels, you will accumulate acidic waste in all kinds of tissues over the years. And if you have lived like that for 5 years, results of alkaline therapies will be quicker. But if you've lived like that for 10, 20, 30 years, you have a lot more accumulation in your deposit sites and the connective tissues all over your body. So it'll take longer. So my answer to this question is always, what has accumulated over the years or even decades does not flush out over the weekend. So this is the thing that you have to kind of read up a little bit upon, make up your mind, try this, and then kind of aim for at least 2-3 months of changes. And I'm very certain that even after 2-3 weeks of making adjustments, you will already see the beneficial effects. But if you want to see like full therapeutic possibility, you'd have to do this for at least 2-3 months. Oh yeah, and especially if you're just using a supplement and your stress, diet, and lifestyle just keeps going on, this would even take a little bit longer. I think it's just as important to really analyze your life, analyze your stressors, and make targeted changes step by step. Nobody is perfect, but I'm very certain that with changes towards a more alkaline life, you will notice the benefits fairly quickly.
Now, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, there is a lot to be said about proper pH balance through the body. And Pure Lab Vitamins is hosting a free webinar where you guys are going to be talking more in depth about alkalinity for skin health and beauty. So can you share with our listeners a little bit more about what they can expect during this webinar and how they can register?
Yeah, this webinar is coming up on April 27th, 6:30 p.m. I will go into great detail how the deposition of acidic waste in the connective tissues of our body's periphery and the cartilage of our joints and tendons, how that actually works and why it can be the causing mechanism of inflammation in these tissues. Acids are corrosive, right? So it will give you a good idea of why chronic inflammatory conditions kind of start to come up at a certain age and what you can do to kind of reverse this process to actually then in the long run reduce like even more severe chronic disease. You can register for this webinar through the links that Joanne's Place sends out with their regular email newsletter. You can find it on my website. You can also follow us or Joanne's on Facebook. You will get notifications there, and you will see this registration post on all these channels. And maybe one last thing to point out, this is a live webinar, but we always make a recording of it, and these recordings then go up on our website and our YouTube channel, and you can find the whole variety of previous webinar recordings in the webinar tab on our website.
Wonderful. I'm really looking forward to learning more about alkalinity in regards to a healthy, beautiful skin. So I will leave the registration link in the description below, and it will also be on the featured post on our Joanne's Place website for this specific blog post related to this podcast. So if you want to register, then please go do so there. Thanks again, Cyrus, for joining us today and sharing your wealth of knowledge. I look forward to chatting with you again in the near future.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always fun, and let's make a change.
Absolutely.
There's no change without change. You can't expect things to magically get better. We got to do something for it. And this webinar will definitely give you some more detailed ideas.
Perfect. Thank you so much. If you guys are still here, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. You know what to do now. Be sure to subscribe to our channels so you're notified as soon as a new episode is released. And also find us on social media and share that you are listening to the Wellness on Purpose podcast.